it does more than just the practical skills. I think it instills a respect for those principles upon which our great country was able to grow.
Hello, and welcome to the Arts of Language podcast with Andrew Pudewa, founder of the Institute for Excellence in Writing, or as many like to say, IEW. My name is Julie Walker, and I'm honored to serve Andrew and IEW as the Chief Marketing Officer. Our goal is to equip teachers and teaching parents with methods and materials which will aid them in training their students to become confident and competent communicators and thinkers. Well, Andrew, summer's coming.
It is.
It is.
Yes.
And of course, that means a lot of different things for a lot of different people. For some kids, it might mean, yay, I'm free from school. I'm now, spending lots more time at home.
I can be excited for 1 week and then bored for the next 2 months.
Right. And we actually have this another podcast we did on boredom.
Yes.
And why boredom is not a bad thing.
Not a bad thing.
Right. So we've also had conversations about what can you do on your summer vacation and, whether or not that includes travel. But mostly what we've talked about in the past that I'd like to revisit today is this idea of entrepreneurship. That's something that I know you, in your heart of hearts, you are an entrepreneur. How many bosses have you actually had your entire life?
Only 2, and both of them were when I worked for nonprofit organizations.
There you go. So,
although that's not counting you sometimes.
I am not
when
your
you
boss.
tell me what I need to do.
Yeah, so entrepreneurship, why is this such a great thing, and why is summer such a good time to spend some time doing this?
To think about it, absolutely.
And we have a guest on our podcast today. And so, Andrew, why don't you introduce our guest?
Yeah, so our guest today is Mark Baker, and I met Mark at the Homeschool Convention. Mark, where was it? In Atlanta?
Atlanta, yep, last year.
Yeah. And I always walk around a convention, and I look at every exhibit, mainly because I want to see, okay, are any of my friends here? And then what's new? Mm-hmm. What's out here that I have never seen before?
And you're secretly buying things for your grandchildren.
No, I don't. That's my wife's job to buy things for her grandchildren. And I mean, occasionally I do. Like if it's a super cool rubber band gun or something that she wouldn't buy. But I'm always very interested to know what's new out there in the homeschool and the publishing world. And when someone or something catches my eye, I want to learn about it. So that's where I met Mark, and you were there with your partner, I believe. What's his name?
Yeah, Billy Smith.
Billy Smith. And you guys had a video and a pretty sharp-looking display, and it was all about Christian Homeschool Entrepreneurship. And so we started a conversation there about that, and you had just got this thing rolling. In fact, I think you were still finishing up the video production at that time.
Yep. Yeah, we launched it last summer, so that was right in the beginning.
Yeah. But you live in Spokane area, Washington.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Spokane,
yep.
Washington, yep.
Good. So I thought it would be fun for you to tell us a little bit about your, how you got going in this direction, what's your, the content of your course. And I have always felt that, entrepreneurship is very closely related in many ways, kind of with an evangelical mindset. If you're going to start a business, you've got to, take risks. You've got to communicate well. You've got to, kind of put yourself out there in a way that you can get by without doing, kind of through the course of normal go to school, play the game, get a job life. But to start a business requires either some inborn aptitude or some aptitude development that is a little off the beaten path, so to speak. So I've always been interested because I started my first business when I was 16. As soon as I had a car, my love of life was war games and Napoleonic miniatures and little naval miniatures and board games, Avalon Hill. This is before computers. That's how old I am. And when I discovered that you could buy wholesale for cheaper and then sell retail and then keep stuff that you wanted for yourself at a discount, I thought, that's the way to get what you want.
There you go.
And so I traveled around in my little 65 Chevy Nova with a trunk full of gaming supplies. And I would go to events and open up my trunk almost like a dealer. Hey, let's see what I've got. Yeah, we can do a deal here. And so since then, I've tried many different business types of things, some of which have been not quite as successful as others. But, so I kind of come at this way. But why do you think entrepreneurship is so valuable for kids and teens to learn? Why not just wait till you're all grown up?
Yeah, that's great. I wish I had gotten started earlier. I had already finished college and was working on a master's degree when I kind of caught the entrepreneur bug, and ever since have been kind of, as you mentioned, trying out lots of different things. Some work better than others, but I think there's some really, really great opportunities for kids, some really good reasons why they, teens or even younger, even we've got students, even some 9 and 10-year-olds in our course that are just loving the idea of entrepreneurship. And really, I think when you look at kids, they are filled with creativity that's just brimming and ready to explode. And so entrepreneurship is an outlet of creativity, and often the process of coming up with a business idea and then wondering how you could share the word about the business and how you could grow it, and all those kinds of things that just require an immense amount of creativity. So we have found that young people are the ideal people to get excited about entrepreneurship. It's the perfect time of their life to really dive in. And so they have some great opportunities that other people don't. I mean, once you're out on your own, you've moved out of your parents' house, and you've got all your expenses, and you're heading on a career path. It's hard to switch and take big risks, and so there's a great opportunity that teens especially can have, where they can. There's nothing that stops say a teenager from starting a full-scale, very, very successful business, and yet they don't have nearly the amount of risk that many of the people they'd actually be competing with have. And so, yeah, we think it's that helping young people from a young age start to think that direction and look for opportunities that most people don't see is just a great opportunity.
What are some of the skills that you believe are developed through the process of studying and then thinking of options, then actually planning a business, and then actually implementing the business? Because we always talk about, in education, we talk about integration, right? And we love integration of language arts. So our little tagline is, listen, speak, read, write, think. And so anything that integrates those, but I think entrepreneurship moves even further into character development, even, math and organizational skills. What have you noticed in terms of things you can say, start a business and you will learn, probably, some of these things?
Well, absolutely. I mean, all that you touched on, it's so interdisciplinary in terms of particularly as a startup entrepreneur, you're wearing all the hats. So you're stretching your math skills with accounting and finances, and you're obviously doing a lot probably of writing and communicating, whether that's marketing information or customer service, and speaking and learning how to interact with all sorts of different potential people out there. So I mean, it covers all the educational spectrum. But I love what you're saying too, because really the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about entrepreneurship for young people is the character building, and that's what I've seen in the life of my own kids as they've gotten their feet wet with different entrepreneurial ventures and projects, that often the lessons they learn that are the best lessons are what does it mean to have character in your business, to have integrity and fulfilling what you've started or what you've promised, or what does it just mean to work hard, to learn how to, which is a trait that's lacking a lot, I think, in our culture. And so I think of my son this was a couple summers ago, he started a business building patio furniture, bright, colorful, painted patio furniture that he built out of just pine boards, and then he would sell them. And boy, along the way, he learned so many lessons about working hard and doing quality work, because there were many steps along the way where he and I would look at what he was doing, and he would work on it on his own, and then he'd come check in with me and have me come look at it, and I'd say, well, that leg looks like it's a little crooked there, and he'd say, yeah, that's okay, it's not that bad, it'll be okay. And then the next time it'd be, well, looks like maybe those boards aren't quite fit together, and well, that'll be okay. And then when we got to the end, it didn't look good. I mean, it looked unsellable, because one little thing here and there and there and there and there adds up into something that is, 8 degrees off and leaning, and, it just can't sell it. And what he realized was all those little decisions I made to ignore something, instead of fixing it right then, which would have been easy now, is going to require taking the whole thing apart, which he did, and then had to rebuild. And it was an incredible amount of work to do that. And so obviously the lesson that he learned very quickly was, next time I'm gonna fix that right away in process, instead of waiting until the end and having to go back and fix the whole thing. So I think there's a lot of character that can be built.
It reminds me of the motto which our marketing director, Julie Walker, has for our company, which is, Julie?
Good enough isn't.
Yeah, you kind of get to that point where you do realize that you can say to yourself, well, it's good enough. Mm-hmm. But if you really want to excel, and especially if you're in a competitive, if you're in a business where there are other people selling similar mm-hmm. things, good enough isn't anymore. So.
Well, and Mark, I just want to congratulate you, Dad, for not forcing him to fix it then.
Right.
You allowed him to fail with a safety net. He wasn't out on his own. He's learning at a young age that it's okay to fail and fix the mistake now so that he can be better at failing and then succeeding later when he's older. So good for you. That's hard for parents to watch their kids stumble and fall.
I don't know how many homeschool conventions you've been to, but there are some that have a kids entrepreneur section. So they will, provide exhibit space in the exhibit hall, with all the publishers and people like us at a much reduced rate to homeschool kids who have a product that they want to display or sell.
I love visiting those. I just come with dollar bills in my pocket, ready to see what treasures I'm going to find.
Although there's not much you can buy for $1 anymore. These kids are savvy. They realize, a pot holder should bring you at least 5. But I've been so amazed at, both the consistency and variety of products. You always find soap making. You always find some boys have done like a wood burning, or wood display. Now with their little laser engraving things, they can really make beautiful kind of artwork on wood. Oftentimes there's a weaponry, some kind of appeals to other children. In fact,
the rubber band gun.
Well, this one convention I went to, these guys were selling the kind of swords and spears that are made out of PVC pipe and foam insulation.
Wow.
And I guess there's a whole culture of people who make and get these weapons, and they go up and whack each other really hard because it's all covered with foam and duct tape. I watched these guys. They sold about $4,000 of stuff and almost sold out their whole inventory on the first day. And then, of course, there was a whole space in the exhibit hall where these kids were out having these essentially battles, medieval battles. And I thought, well, they're making a lot more than some of the, quote, real businesses in the room.
Great.
And, kids who've recorded and are selling CDs. I bought the cutest little dress last year for one of my granddaughters.
See, you do buy for your
Well,
grandchildren.
I was sucked into it because this little girl, she's like 10 years old, and she was making these beautiful dresses. She goes, Oh, Mr. Pudawa, I watch all your videos and I love your writing program. How could I not?
Right.
This was a $30 purchase of this gorgeous little.
So salesmanship, Mark. These
Oh,
kids learn
yeah.
They
salesmanship.
learn, and I love how they learn to interact with adults with this level of confidence. You don't see that in the general world of kids nearly as much.
I totally agree. Yeah, that's great to hear of all those. I've been so encouraged by, similar stories of just seeing students in our class, or even at some of the conventions we've been to, hearing stories of students that came up and they start telling you of an idea, and you say that's a great idea, and then you find out they're already doing it. They're already making money doing it and growing it, and it might only be 12 years old or something. So yeah, they have a lot of potential.
Yeah, I'll tell you the best story I ever heard. This was a group that started a little entrepreneurship club, some kind of offshoot of a homeschool co-op with, I don't know, half a dozen kids, and they were all kind of upper elementary, middle school, grade 4, 5, 6, whatever. They were using, I believe, that Lemonade to Leadership thing.
The book that we publish.
Yeah, and so this little boy at 11 years old got the idea of melting crayons into forms with shapes. You can get those little mold things at Hobby Lobby or whatever. And so he melted the crayons and created little interesting fish and rocket ships and cars-shaped crayons. And then he ended up selling them to a Shoney's restaurant. I think you guys have Shoney's up in Northwest there. It's a chain. It's not nationwide. But anyway, they would buy these things to give to the children who came in to eat, in the restaurant with their family. And so somehow their other Shoney's managers found out about it and said, well, that's really nice. I'd buy those. And so he had the problem. He couldn't get enough used crayons to meet his supply, or to meet his demand. So he went to preschools and elementary schools, kindergarten, whatever. Do you have any used crayons? And they said, no, we don't. And his father said, well, why don't you try a little different approach? Tell them you're recycling crayons. So he went out and said, yeah, I'm recycling crayons. Do you have any that you... And then everyone was happy to save up their old crayons and give it to him because it sounded like such a much better thing. And it got to the point where he was making many hundreds of dollars a month, and he actually had to hire his friend and his sister to help, melt the crayons and pour them into the molds and package them in little plastic bags with a ribbon. I just love that story. Yeah. What are some of the business ideas you've heard of that kind of charm you? And you've got a few that are mentioned on your website.
Yeah, well, some of the ones that have that we've heard from some of our students have been. So there was a 12-year-old girl who was got her grandma's recipe for kind of a family recipe cake, and started baking them and taking them to the local restaurants. And by the time we had interacted with her, she already had multiple restaurants in town who, she regularly supplied to them. They put them in their glass case and in the front of the store. And similar to what you just said, she got to the point where she had to hire some siblings and even some other friends to help her because there was more demand than her time could allow. So super encouraging to hear something like that. We did a business plan competition as a part of the class earlier this year, and one of the students, he was really into history, but particularly history of World War I, World War II, and so he saw this opportunity for creating his own book line that it was there's a lot of books out there that were all about history, and then there were some that were more like comic book kind of things, but he couldn't find one that did both, that appealed to kids his age. I think he was 10 at the time, and also covered the facts and all the the details, and so he had gone to great. He wasn't published yet, but he was way down the road of writing and putting together materials, and I'm sure that he will. He was very motivated to get that one going, and then his goal mainly to market it was through homeschool conventions, like you talked about. So yeah, you see kids with creative ideas that just take the bull by the horns and go for it. We put together a list on our in our course of we put together 40 business ideas that we thought were ideally suited for young people. When I've looked around for lists of business ideas, I would find oftentimes lists of the ones that were targeted for kids they didn't do justice to what the kids could really accomplish. They were very, very simple, and young people are able to do a lot more than a lemonade stand only, or making a homemade craft at home, which those are great businesses, but we wanted to push them as well to even consider things like creating a subscription box, for example, where they could use a platform like CreateJoy and set up a simple little page that offers whatever things they want to put into a subscription box, and then monthly send those out to people who subscribe, whether that's bath items or gardening, seeds and tools and things. There's a lot of opportunities. So we've tried to give them, everything from the practical, hands-on kind of craft projects, all the way to pushing them to even consider online businesses and things like that. So
you've got probably the most extensive course that I've seen anywhere. Give us kind of the table of contents and the scope. If someone were to go ahead and say, yes, I want to take this course, what would they be signing up for?
Yeah, so our course is, it runs for the whole school year, so it's a 36-week course, and it's delivered in a video format. They watch a video each week, and then there's some homework that goes along with that, some project-based homework. It usually is encouraging them to apply the things, and we try to help walk them through coming up with narrowing down from a bunch of business ideas that they might be interested in to one, and then work through the course on trying to help them actually, work towards starting that business. So the course kind of begins off in the first 5 or 6 lessons, really focusing on how do you even think like an entrepreneur? What does it mean to look at the world in a way where you're looking for opportunities and you're seeing opportunities and able to capitalize on the things that are around you all the time. And so it starts off there with the thought process, because again, as young people, helping them think that way from a young age is going to benefit them so much as they move through their life. And then it moves into just many practical areas. We try to cover basically everything they would need to know to start their business. So how do you come up with business ideas? How to write a business plan? If you were ever going to try to seek some investment money, what would that look like? We go extensively through marketing, and we especially focus our marketing sections on how do you market when you have a very limited budget, because most startups by young people have really no marketing budget, and so how do you still spread the word without the traditional marketing budget? And then we just kind of cover everything they would need to know about the legal, the paperwork, the business formation, the what if you're going to hire people, what if you're going to use independent contractors, and so really kind of covering the whole gamut of what they would need to do a business.
Sounds like adults who wanted
Yes.
to start a business, or if you wanted to do it, not just the kid, but maybe the whole family, say, let's start a family business. Sounds like you would address almost everything that even adults would want to know.
That's true. We didn't intend, or we didn't foresee it that way, and yet once we launched it, right off the bat, we had parents who were signing their kids up saying, I want to take this too, and going through it with them, because we're trying to challenge the students. We've tried to design the course in a way that, like I said, even a 9 or 10-year-old can watch the videos and get excited about it and benefit from it, but deliver the content in a way that it's going to challenge even a high schooler. And so there's actually, the homework is broken into 2 sections. There's a kind of a standard homework and then an advanced homework for the high schoolers that really pushes them to like you said, digest materials, read articles, read journal articles, watch videos of the kinds of things that Billy and I would watch if we wanted to learn about getting investment money or things like that. And so, because they're capable of that, they're certainly able to push themselves in that direction. So,
I am reminded of John Taylor Gatto. I don't know if you're familiar. He wrote several books, one of them called An Underground History of American Education, which I have talked about many times before. He taught 8th grade English in Brooklyn, New York for many years, was the New York City Teacher of the Year, New York State Teacher of the Year, many awards. But one of the things he said that always struck me as being particularly true and somewhat sad is that what every 13-year-old in the world wants more than anything else is real, honest-to-God, meaningful life and death responsibility. And that seems to be exactly what schools make very difficult. That he would, frequently even do illegal things like sneak kids out of class so they could go have real world, real life experiences, and encouraging and coaching them to that. He passed on about a year and a half ago, but he always struck me as someone who really understood that age very, very well. And while we still have to do school in whatever form we do, whether it's, going to a school or doing homeschool, and a lot of it, the kids are like, why do I have to do this? When am I ever going to use this in real life? If we can supplement that, though, with something really meaningful, I think it makes a huge difference just in the level of engagement and overall motivation that young people have. So
absolutely. I mean, if you even just look at writing and communication, if that's something that they're doing in school, and yet if they try to start a business and interact with customers or put out a marketing flyer or something and there's typos all over it or the grammar is poor, they're going to realize really quickly that is a big deal and that they want to go back and learn those things maybe more than they had ever thought they wanted to before.
Yeah. And it's kind of that real world consequences. It forces a level of meticulousness. One humorous story to illustrate. My son, who many of our listeners have heard, was extremely dyslexic, didn't actually read really anything till he was about 11 years old, didn't read a book till he was 12. But he was about 10. He and I started a little business. He did it. It was Christoph's Sword Shop. And I was traveling around doing conventions, and he loved weaponry of every sort. And so we found this maker of these beautiful white oak handmade wooden swords. And so I negotiated a wholesale price on these things. Then we found some other wholesale metal sword dealers online. And so we got a dozen or so different swords and daggers and bought, half a dozen of each. And I kind of fronted the up cost. And then whenever there was a convention where I could get a table for him pretty cheap and we could, go together and fill up a couple suitcases with swords, he would go out. And I remember he would, the kids would be like all over, all the boys. I want to hold every sword. And he would go, well, go find your mom. And then they'd bring the mom over. And he'd give this little talk like, when a boy holds a sword, it's like a boy holding a piece of history. And he could just sell. I was amazing. But one interesting thing happened. We were on this one trip, and he had this very cool, very nice little dagger. And I had taught him about wholesale retail, and you want your pricing to be, 50 to 60% more than what you pay for it, et cetera, et cetera. And, or about, you would buy at about a 50% discount. So your wholesale would be half of your retail. And so he figured out all the prices and made the decisions and all this. So we went and he sold like 10 of these things. And then that night he's counting up his money. He's like $100 short. And he can't understand why he's short so much money. And he's like really frustrated, and I'm asking questions like, well, did you leave your money box unattended, whatever? And finally, he has this realization that this sword that he had priced for $32, he'd been selling to everyone for $23 because of the dyslexia thing, And he was just like, oh, this dyslexia has got me again. And then he said, well, I'm just going to change the price to $33.
There you go.
But all sorts of little lessons like that. So if people want to learn more, I think you've got a couple. Your first lessons are free to view online. Is that right?
Yeah, the first two weeks of lessons are free to watch and look at the homework and everything.
And it's Christian Homeschool Entrepreneurship, all one word, .com.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then we'll put up a link. If you go through our link, we get a little credit for sending people to you, I think.
Ever the entrepreneur you are.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm thinking this is a great time, not just for homeschool kids, but especially for kids who, are, this year, out of school a little early. But they have that big chunk. It's funny. I ask kids, are you happy school's over? Yeah. 2 weeks into summer, they're bored. They don't realize they're bored, and they don't necessarily want to go back to school, but they want things to do to be productive other than just play with Legos and, play video games or be on social media. And so I think this is a great time and a great opportunity to look into a serious course here that you've got. And I know you're very interested in helping everyone. I think part of what people get if they go is an online forum. Tell us a little bit. You've got like a little discussion group or ideas sharing.
Yeah, there's an online forum that all the students get access to, and it's a place for them to be able to interact with each other. And then I'm interacting in there at times. And most of the homework and projects at some point ask them to interact in the forum with each other, because they learn a lot from each other. They might, the task might be to look at a potential opportunity and come up with several different business ideas of how you would address that. And they'll come up with several, but then as they look through the forum, they'll see a whole bunch of new ones that they had never thought of. So yeah, it's a great opportunity for them to connect together that way.
The valuable skill of networking.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Demonstrated right there. So Mark, I'm curious, this is a video course with homework. Is this pretty much self-paced? I know you said it was 36 weeks, but is this live instruction? Is this asynchronous? Is this something that the kids can do at their own pace? And, just describe the course.
How long is each session too? That's I don't know.
Yeah, those are great questions. It's pre-recorded and they can do it at their own pace. During the school year, the format is that 1 week they would watch one video a week. The videos they range anywhere from 25 to 40 minutes. Most of them are in the 25 to 30 minute range. But in the summer, see, the question we actually get from a lot of the students once they do lesson 1 and 2, and especially those ones where they're being challenged to think creatively and come up with business ideas, they want to go faster and faster, and they ask, can I watch them quicker than 1 a week? So in the summer, they could easily go through the whole 36 lessons in a summer, no problem, and they could do that at their own pace.
Great.
Good.
Sounds awesome. And you're available to coach these kids through your forum then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and some of the projects actually ask them to submit things back to me, and then I critique it and give them some feedback, so that's fun.
Wow, that's great. Yeah. So I was also going to ask that. The homework goes to you in some cases, huh? That's great. Mm-hmm. So Mark, not too many homeschool conventions happening this summer. I don't know about you, but I know that Mr. Pudewa is a little sad to not be flying all over the country. And actually, you canceled a trip, an international trip this summer as well, didn't you, Andrew? Yeah. So
I'm missing my people.
Yeah. So we're trying to do things like more Facebook Live events and just kind of connecting that way. Any suggestions for those budding entrepreneurs to get connected now during this time where there's not as much travel allowed?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great time to use online resources. I mean, both Billy and I have gravitated. We've always kind of gravitated in our business ventures to online things because there's so much opportunity there. So I think students that are interested in exploring entrepreneurship, and even if you can't leave home, you can start a business right at home. You can start all kinds of businesses from home, and so I think there's great opportunities even at a time like this for sure.
Well, super. So, any closing thoughts, Andrew or Mark, before we?
Well, I would. I'm thinking back to Oliver DeMille and his point that kind of in the beginning of the United States, what it meant to be an American essentially was to be an owner, of the means of production, agrarian or in a merchant class. And most people were in that category of the mindset of, I will, create my means of livelihood, and that is part of my, pursuit of happiness really was the pursuit of right means of livelihood. And from that time until now, we've moved from like 95% of the people being that way to now 95% of the people being employees or dependents and
consumers rather than producers.
Even if you work in a business or you're an employee, you're producing. And I'm super grateful for companies like Delta Airlines. But what DeMille was saying is that we do need this kind of shift back to that yeoman, that entrepreneur, that pioneer, that mentality, so that we can recapture that spirit of freedom that drove the country's development in the early period. So it does more than just the practical skills. I think it instills a respect for those principles upon which our great country was able to grow.
Yeah, well said.
That's right.
So, well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys. It's been great.
Yeah, Mark, and of course, as we've already mentioned, we'll put links in our show notes to some of the things that you mentioned, including your website, including the free lessons, so that people can go check you out and maybe start a business and at the same time save Western civilization. What do you think?
Sounds great.
Yeah.
All right.
Hopefully we'll meet again at a homeschool convention once things are back to normal.
Yes, sounds great. Thank you both. Yep.
All righty. God bless you.
Thanks so much for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more, you can subscribe to this podcast in iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher, or just visit us each week at iew.com/podcast. Until then, on behalf of Andrew Pudewa and the team at IEW, I thank you for allowing us to partner with you on your journey toward better listening, speaking, reading, writing, and thinking.